Hi, everyone. This is Mindao from dForce. I'm very glad to be here today joining the SmartCon hosted by Chainlink. Before I get to the presentation, I would like to give a brief intro about myself and dForce. I actually been in the crypto quite early since 2013. At the time was mainly trading Bitcoin. And also starting in 2014, I participated in Ethereum ICO at the time, and it's a real ride. It's almost like 8 years, and it's great to see that Ethereum just went through a very successful upgrade yesterday. And I founded dForce in early 2019. It's one of the very earlier DeFi project coming out from Asia. We already started off from Ethereum, and then we expanded to Binance Smart Chain and also Arbitrum. And I'm very glad that we are backed by our very reputable investors, including CMB International, which is the fifth largest commercial bank in China, and also Mindao Capital, which is a very reputable investor in crypto and Huobi as well. I think dForce is basically, distinguished from the other DeFi projects because we are not just focused on one vertical protocol. And what we actually been doing over the past almost 2 years is basically building a protocol matrix. And we started from native protocol, including lending, where we have a pool-based lending protocol where you can just supply collaterals and then you borrow the other supported asset out. And also on top of that, we have a yield markets that actually pour capital and then invested into the lending protocol. And all these two are interconnected. In addition to that, we also have asset protocol like stablecoins, where we have our native USX and EUX stablecoins, both the US dollar and euro. And you can use the collateral in the lending pool to also borrow out or mint stablecoin as well. And this year, we also launched our synthetic protocols so in addition to stablecoin, you can also mint our synthetic ETH, BTC, as well as US stocks like Tesla, Amazon, coins, etc. So I think it's quite comprehensive that we build our native protocols across lending, asset, and also we have a trading aggregators that basically providing liquidity between our lending protocol and asset protocol. And in addition to the native protocol, what we're doing now is basically expanding it to ecosystem projects where we have a number of projects in the pipelines. They are to be launched over the next 1 or 2 months, including I think the first ever used staking token lending markets, where you basically use the POS staking tokens with the staking yields as collateral and then provide to lending markets to borrow out the underlying tokens. So you can actually optimize your staking yields. This will be the first ever such market, in DeFi space. And we are very glad that we are partnered with a number of other ecosystem projects to launch this market. And stay tuned for some of the latest update there. And of course, the real world financing is something that we are going to focus over the next 1 or 2 months, because we believe that, for DeFi really to scale up to $1 trillion asset class, it definitely need more real world asset onboarding. And of course, the ecosystem projects, some of the projects are actually very, highly aligned with us. And we also have third-party protocols, including aggregators, DACs, as well as derivative platforms that integrated with our lending protocol or our stablecoins. And we founded our dForce Lab early this year, where we provide not just funding but also liquidity supports for some of the ecosystem project and third-party integrations. So what we're trying to do, I think, is quite unique in a way that we want to create a micro sort of DeFi networks where we can maintain liquidity within the native protocol and also ecosystem projects. I think one benefit of that is actually increase the network effects and also increase the capital efficiency, because there's much less friction within all these protocol matrix. And so far, I think that the capital efficiency of our lending as well as the trading protocol are very, very good. And actually, it makes third-party sort of platforms to integrate very, very easy. And as I just mentioned earlier, we have focused on particularly on ecosystem project on three verticals. One is the real world financing, where we connect the DeFi capital to the real world, for example, borrowers where they want financing for the real world transactions. And also POS staking, yield assets, and derivative platforms. And we have pipeline projects already within our pools, and they are going to be launched over the next 2 months. And when we're talking about horizontal vertical integration, I think it's really talking about how we actually can create more synergy across lending, trading, synthetics, and derivative. All these are basically horizontal features. And underneath that is the asset protocol that we're trying to tightly integrate with the protocol, including our native stablecoins, our synthetic BTC ETH, as well as the synthetic stocks. And also, I think we have to really thank Chainlink for providing a very unified Oracle infrastructure, because we now deploy on 3 chains. And we're going to expand to other like Polygon and the other chain as well. And it's very difficult if actually we don't have a unified Oracle service, which is basically the backbone for DeFi. And I'm very glad that Chainlink is basically providing a very unified sort of infrastructure we can rely on, and we can just spend more time working on the perfecting our protocols. And of course, for our token holders, it's very important that we have a unified sort of proxy for the value capture. Where all the values that flowing through lending, trading, and asset protocol are able to capture through a unified sort of a proxy, which is going to launch along with our on-chain governance system over the next 30 days. And the unified proxy is able to actually capture all the fee accrues from lending, trading, as well as assets. So I think we are already mostly into I think the second half of the year, and I think that the next like 2 months or 3 months we're going to be implementing our on-chain governance, as well as launching the POS staking lending market, as well as the real world financing. And these are some of the ecosystem projects that we will spend more resources on. And of course, we're also going to expand into other cases as well. And in addition to dForce, I think it's also very important that I would like to share some of the observations for DeFi in general. I think that some of the DeFi chains to watch. I think I've been into crypto DeFi for at least since the DeFi has been really becomes a concept. It's almost like 2 years. And what we've done so far is basically just mirror and copy pasting whatever we have in centralized finance to decentralized finance. And so far it's very successful, right? We actually just mirror the whole traditional finance infrastructure into a parallel decentralized open financing infrastructure. And when actually, we first started our first DeFi protocol, I think the TVL for the whole sector is almost like, less than 100 million. And now it's almost like close to 100 billion. It's more than 100 times growth in terms of lock values. And also in terms of users, it's even more, dramatic. It's almost like several hundred times growth. It's now almost 3 million, crossed 3 million mark in terms of the total users. And also the DEX volume picking up significantly over the past 12 months. And also borrowing volume, particularly in 2021, I think it picked up also quite significant. And stablecoins, in circulation, I think this is the most kind of visible evidence of adoption in terms of crypto. As the stablecoin in circulation is also at all-time high, even though that we actually still see a lot of a very dramatic correction in terms of the markets. But actually, if we look at a bigger picture, crypto as a whole, as asset class, comparing with traditional asset class, is less than 0.5% of the total assets, accounting for like stock market, real estate, and bonds and golds. That's why I think that the so-called the bottleneck for DeFi is really on the asset side. How much we can actually bring the real asset on chain, and how much we really can tap into the traditional financial asset classes. And we look at the financial services assets like 300 trillion. I think it's probably an underestimate of that. And we actually look at DeFi is still very, very small in terms of the market size, but the room for growth is dramatic. It's 4,000, 5,000 times larger. So I think what we are seeing here is a great convergence. That's what I'm saying here for the DeFi and CeFi. We're talking about how the relationship looks like. I think. From a conceptual perspective, it's basically a front shop, back factored model, where CeFi is more like interfacing with the consumers. I think they're more like the application layers that are interacting with the regulators as well as consumers. Where DeFi, I think, is supposedly serve as a fundamental or infrastructure layer underneath the all these consumer facing applications. And we see that over the next 6 to 12 months, I think the line between CeFi and DeFi, it will be like, it will be more blur. And you can't really tell, whether, DeFi probably will become more CeFi and CeFi will become more DeFi. I think we already see that trend happening. We look at MakerDAO, they actually enter into real world financing. They work with Centrifuge. And they already offer, I think they already originate like $20 million real world financing transactions. Compound, they launched their Compound Treasury, which is a saving account just targeted institutional investors. And also, Avi just announced their professional Avi Prop. They rename into another name, but they basically targeting KYC and also institutions. And dForce as well, we actually have two a market launch. One is a liquid staking tokens. I think it's also it's also targeting some of the validators and POS operators. And we are going to launch the real financing module as well, which is basically targeting regulated borrowers. And those transactions are basically whatever happened in real world. For example, like supply chain financing, receivable financing, M&A acquisitions, leverage buyout transactions. Of course, those transactions will mainly will be tapping into the senior debt sort of kind of instruments. It's more secure debt kind of instrument. But I think going forward, we are going to be tapping into more diversified set of traditional financial instruments. And I think the trend is going to be. A lot of DeFi will be definitely going to enter into the CeFi and traditional finance asset classes. And I think the critical sort of thing when we're looking at the whole development of DeFi over the past like 2 years, I think one significant sort of benefit out of all this movement is that we created a unified capital market. And basically for a borrower in China or in Brazil, if they actually have access to DeFi, essentially they can access to a unified capital markets. For the miners in China, they can borrow US dollar loans with the US dollar funding costs. And this is significant because it never happened before, right? I came from a traditional finance background. When you actually have, financing, typically the funding cost is local, right? You have RMB funding costs, which is sometimes very high. So I think it's the great thing about DeFi when we're actually trying to move more on real world financing asset on chain is that we basically take advantage of the funding costs of DeFi and then provide those sort of low funding costs to the real world borrowers who actually in need and actually lower their funding costs. So I think that we will see the great convergence happening over the next 12 months. And of course, during the process, there will be a lot of fights, right? We've been seeing a lot of, fight already on the Capitol Hill over the past 5 days, talking about bills that, trying to actually classify POS or DeFi operators into some of the regulatory captures. I think we're going to see a lot of fights, over the next 12 months. But the trend is inevitable, and I'm very, very grateful that dForce is actually on the forefront of all these experiments, and we definitely is trying to create a bridge between DeFi and CeFi and traditional finance world. So I think what we've been proudly doing over the past 2 years is actually, the whole DeFi movement is building a parallel financial infrastructure. And now this infrastructure is so big that all the regulators around the world is actually waking up and trying to provide more clarities. I think this is something all the DeFi entrepreneurs that is going to be take notice. And I think we have to really create a model that is more compatible with both the DeFi and CeFi. And I'm very glad to share my observation here. So back to you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Mindao. It's great to hear from you again and see what dForce is building. Just really interesting. And speaking of, being on time, I appreciate you staying up late, wherever time zone you're in, but I think it's really important to do some of these cross-global connections, and you come and speak to Western audience, and more Western audiences need to listen to more Asian-based teams as well. Incredibly important, because as we hear your presentation, you're speaking the same language in terms of institutional adoption and how do we make things easy.